Your brain is running 10 secret programs designed to keep you from succeeding, and it runs them most aggressively on the smartest people. That's not a metaphor. The more pattern recognition, the more intelligence, the more interests you have, the more of these traps your mind sets for itself automatically below the level where you can even see them happening. You've felt the results your whole life, the projects that die at 90%, the decisions you overthink into paralysis, the strange way that being capable of everything has somehow left you with a graveyard of unfinished proof and a quiet suspicion that you're wasting whatever this is. Take a breath, because none of that means you're broken or lazy or undisciplined. It means your brain is running a set of predictable cognitive paradoxes that researchers have actually mapped and that hit high-intelligence, multi-interest minds the hardest. And the moment you can see a trap, it stops being invisible, and you can finally step around it. So here are the 10 paradoxes sabotaging you without your knowledge, each one grounded in real psychology, and each one with a specific antidote you can use. The seventh is the one almost nobody catches because it disguises itself as humility. Stick around for that one. If you've ever felt like the most capable person you know with the least to show for it, you've found your people. Subscribe, and let's take these traps apart one by one. Paradox 1. The completion paradox. Here's the first trap, and it explains the graveyard better than anything. Your brain does not reward you most for finishing. It rewards you most for pursuing. Neuroscience on the dopamine system shows that the biggest neurochemical hit comes during the chase, when the outcome is still uncertain and the possibilities are still open, not at the moment of completion. The pursuit is where the dopamine lives. The finish line is, chemically, almost an anticlimax. For a polymath, this gets worse because finishing a project doesn't just feel flat, it feels like a loss. While the project is unfinished, it could still become anything. The moment you complete it, it collapses from infinite potential into one finite, judgeable, imperfect thing. So your brain, sensing the coming loss of possibility, quietly steers you away from the finish line and toward a new chase. That's the 90% graveyard. You're not failing to finish. Your brain is protecting the dopamine of the chase and avoiding the perceived loss of completing. The antidote: redefine the finish line as a beginning, not an ending. Completion is not the death of possibility. It's the only thing that turns possibility into something real that can grow. Train yourself to chase the moment after the finish, the release, the response, the next door it opens. So your brain learns that finishing starts a new chase rather than ending one. Paradox 2. The intelligence trap. The second paradox is the one your viewers call the invisible lenses. Most people make decisions easily because they can only see a few of the variables. You make decisions slowly, or never, because you can see all of them. Every pattern you've ever absorbed becomes a lens, and the more lenses you wear, the more risks, complications, and second-order consequences you can model for any given choice. Research on overthinking and choice overload is clear that beyond a certain point, more analysis does not improve decisions. It degrades them, and eventually it paralyzes them entirely. This is the cruel part. Your intelligence, the thing that should make you decisive, is exactly what freezes you. The specialist with one lens picks fast and moves. You hold 12 lenses up to the same decision, see 12 ways it could go wrong, and stall. The world calls this indecision. It's actually the opposite. It's too much vision, with no constraint on it. Constraint, not more analysis. Set a decision deadline and a good enough threshold before you start deliberating. Decide in advance how much certainty is enough, and the moment you hit it, you move, even though you can still see more angles. The skill is not seeing fewer lenses. It's choosing to act before you've looked through all of them. Paradox 3. The specialization stigma. The third paradox is the one that has quietly taught you to shrink. In a linear world built around specialists, your single greatest strength, the ability to cross-pollinate between fields, is read as your single greatest weakness, a lack of focus. You've heard it your whole life in 100 forms. Pick a lane. What do you actually do? jack of all trades. And here's the sabotage. After enough years of hearing your strength described as a flaw, you internalize the verdict. You start to subconsciously downplay your own value. You undersell the exact thing that makes you rare, because the world taught you it was a liability. The mechanism is simple social categorization. The world files people fast, and it has no clean file for you, so it defaults to the nearest negative label, unfocused. And you, absorbing the label, begin to file yourself the same way. The antidote. Stop translating your value into the specialist's language where it always sounds like a deficiency, and start naming it in its own terms. You are not unfocused. You are a synthesizer, a connector, a person who solves the problems that live in the gaps between specialties. Say that out loud, to others and to yourself, until the old label loses its grip. The stigma only works while you keep agreeing with it. Paradox 4. The potential paradox. The fourth paradox is the deepest reason you avoid finishing, and it runs underneath the first one. Behavioral economists have shown that humans feel losses more powerfully than equivalent gains. It's called loss aversion, and it quietly governs more of your behavior than you'd like. Now apply it to potential. An unrealized dream, a project still in your head, a talent you haven't tested, all of these carry infinite potential. They could become anything. And the moment you actually pursue one, you risk it failing, which your loss-averse brain experiences as a threat. So you keep the dream in the realm of pure potential, where it can never lose, rather than dragging it into reality where it might. This is why the unbuilt version of you, the one who could have been world-class at the thing, feels more precious than any real thing you've actually made. Potential is undefeated. Reality has a win-loss record, and a loss-averse brain prefers the thing that can never lose. The antidote? Choose finite reality over infinite potential on purpose, knowing it's a real trade. An imperfect finished thing in the world is worth more than a perfect imaginary one in your head, because only the real one can grow, teach you, or compound. You have to consciously decide that you would rather have built something that can fail than protected something that can only stay a ghost. Paradox 5. The open loop tax. The fifth paradox explains why you feel mentally exhausted even when you've produced nothing. In the 1920s, a psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik discovered that the mind holds on to unfinished tasks far more stubbornly than finished ones. Incomplete things stay active in your attention, looping, demanding low-level background processing, refusing to fully close. It's called the Zygarnik effect. Every unfinished project is an open loop, and every open loop runs quietly in the background of your mind, consuming bandwidth. Now count your open loops. The courses, the projects, the half-built ideas, the things you mean to get back to. For a polymath, there can be dozens, and every one of them is silently taxing your available mental RAM, which is exactly why you feel foggy, scattered, and tired despite having finished nothing. It's not laziness. It's that your processor is running 50 background programs you never closed. The antidote. Close loops or consciously archive them. For each open loop, make a real decision. Finish it, kill it, or formally park it somewhere out of your head, with a note that says, "Not now," on purpose. The act of consciously archiving a project frees the RAM almost as well as finishing it, because the loop stops looping once your mind trusts it's been handled rather than abandoned. Paradox 6. The arrival fallacy. The sixth paradox is why finishing things stopped feeling worth it. There's a well-documented phenomenon, named by researchers including Tal Ben-Shahar and explored in the work of Tom Gilovich, called the arrival fallacy. It's the false belief that reaching a goal, finishing the project, Hitting the milestone will deliver the lasting fulfillment you imagine it will. And the reason it's a fallacy is that the feeling, when you arrive, is almost always smaller and shorter than predicted. You hit the goal, feel a brief flicker, and then the baseline reasserts itself. For a mind that's finished a few things and felt that anticlimax, the brain learns a quiet lesson. Finishing doesn't pay. So why finish? The arrival fallacy, experienced a few times, becomes a justification for never completing anything again, because completion has been filed as disappointing. The antidote: stop outsourcing your sense of enough to the finish line and build meaning into the process deliberately. If the arrival was always going to be a flicker, then the value has to live in the doing, the learning, the becoming, not the trophy at the end. Paradoxically, once you stop demanding that finishing make you feel complete, finishing gets easier, because it's no longer carrying a weight it could never hold. Paradox 7. The curse of competence. This is the seventh, the one almost nobody catches, because it wears the mask of humility. The famous Dunning-Kruger research has a second half that rarely gets quoted. While people who are bad at something tend to overestimate themselves, people who are genuinely good at something consistently underestimate themselves. The more competent you actually are, the more you can see everything you don't yet know. The more the field's true depth is visible to you, and so the lower you rate yourself. Real competence comes with the ability to see your own gaps in high resolution. For a polymath who has gone deep enough into many fields to see the vast unknown inside each one, this compounds. You feel like a fraud in every domain, so you undercharge, underapply, underclaim, and hold yourself back from opportunities you're actually qualified for. The world's most confident people are often its least competent. You, being more competent, feel less sure. That's the trap, and it disguises itself as appropriate modesty. The antidote: trust external evidence over internal feeling. Your internal sense of your own ability is systematically miscalibrated downward, so stop using it as your guide. Look at what you've actually done, what people who know the field ask you to do, what results you've actually produced, and let that external record overrule the internal voice that always says, "Not yet, not enough." The feeling of being a fraud is not data. It's a side effect of being good. Paradox 8. The novelty trap. The eighth paradox is why the new idea always wins against the current one. Your dopamine system fires hardest for novelty and for uncertainty. A new idea is maximally novel and maximally uncertain, so it spikes your reward chemistry hard. The project you're currently grinding through is neither. It's familiar, and its outcome is becoming predictable, so it produces almost no spike. At the same time, a bias called hyperbolic discounting means your brain overvalues immediate rewards and undervalues distant ones. The new idea offers an immediate hit of excitement. The current project offers a delayed payoff after a boring middle. The math is rigged against the thing you should finish. So you abandon the 80% project for the shiny new one, over and over. Not because you're flaky, but because your reward system is doing exactly what reward systems do. The new thing is chemically louder than the old thing. The antidote: recognize that the boring middle is precisely where value compounds, and that the excitement of the new idea is a chemical event, not a signal of its worth. When the urge to jump hits, name it. That's novelty talking, not wisdom. Commit, in advance, to carrying at least one thing through its unexciting middle, powered by meaning rather than dopamine, because that's the only place real results are ever built. Paradox 9. The spotlight distortion. The ninth paradox is the fear that keeps you from shipping. There's a well-established bias called the spotlight effect, demonstrated by the psychologist Tom Gilovich, which shows that people dramatically overestimate how much others notice and judge them. You think the whole room registered your stumble. In reality, almost no one did, because everyone is busy starring in their own movie. Now apply this to your unfinished work and your visible failures. You imagine that the world is watching your graveyard, keeping score of every abandoned project, ready to judge the imperfect thing you might release. It isn't. The audience you're terrified of is mostly imaginary, but the fear is real enough to keep you from ever shipping, because a thing kept private can't be judged, and your overactive spotlight makes judgment feel certain and severe. So you hide finished work, or never finish, to avoid a scrutiny that was never actually coming. The antidote? Internalize that nobody is watching as closely as you think, and ship anyway. The imperfect thing you release will draw a fraction of the attention and a fraction of the judgment you're bracing for. Most people will barely notice, and the few who engage will mostly be glad it exists. The spotlight is a distortion. Step into it knowing it's dimmer than it feels. Paradox 10. The self-handicap. The 10th paradox is the most painful because you do it to yourself on purpose, just below awareness. Psychologists have documented a behavior called self-handicapping, where people create obstacles to their own success so that, if they fail, they have an excuse that protects their self-image. You overload your schedule, start too late, take on too much, leave it half-finished, so that when the result isn't extraordinary, you can tell yourself it's because you didn't really try, not because you tried fully and fell short. The unfinished project protects you from the most terrifying possible outcome, which is giving something everything you have and discovering it still wasn't enough. For a high-intelligence mind whose entire identity is built on being capable, this fear is enormous. As long as you never fully commit, your potential stays untested and therefore undefeated. Self-handicapping keeps the dream of your own brilliance intact by ensuring it's never put fully on the line. The cost is that it also guarantees you never find out what you could actually do. The antidote: name the real fear out loud, because it loses power in the light. The fear is not of failing, it's of trying with everything and still falling short, and what that might mean about you. Once you can say that honestly, you can choose the risk on purpose. Pick one thing, give it your actual full effort, no built-in excuse. Whatever happens, you'll have done the one thing self-handicapping exists to prevent, which is finding out who you really are when you stop protecting yourself from the answer. One honest note. A quick, honest word before the close. If this pattern of self-sabotage has hardened into something heavier, a persistent belief that you're worthless, that you'll never amount to anything, that there's no point in trying, that's not a productivity problem, and these antidotes aren't the fix. That's a place to talk to a therapist. Gently. These paradoxes explain the cognitive traps. They are not a substitute for real support when the self-criticism has become the kind that doesn't lift. Being honest about needing help is not another failure. It's the opposite. Your brain isn't broken, it's miscalibrated. So let me leave you here. 10 paradoxes, and notice what they all have in common. Not one of them is a character flaw. Every single one is a side effect of having a powerful, pattern-rich, possibility-seeing mind running on cognitive machinery that was never tuned for it. The dopamine that rewards the chase, the intelligence that sees too many risks, the loss aversion that guards your potential, the competence that disguises itself as fraud, the novelty that drowns out the grind. These aren't signs that you're failing at being capable. They're the predictable costs of being more capable than the average the machinery was built for. You were never lazy. You were never undisciplined. You were running 10 invisible programs that sabotage the gifted specifically. And now they're not invisible anymore. You can see each trap. You can name it as it happens. You can reach for the antidote. The graveyard can stop growing. The decisions can start getting made. The work can start getting shipped. Not because you finally forced yourself to be someone else, but because you finally understood the machine you were always running. Stop blaming the driver. Start tuning the engine. If this gave you a new way to understand why you do what you do, subscribe and join a community of people learning to work with their minds instead of against them. And I want to know in the comments, which of these 10 paradoxes runs your life the hardest? Just name the number. Drop it below and read the replies, because I think a lot of you are going to find out you've been running the exact same program all along. Thanks for watching. Now go disarm a trap.